Welcome to UnCeiling You, the podcast that helps ambitious professionals break through inner and outer ceilings, one powerful conversation at a time. I'm your host, Dr. Natalie Luke, scientist, strategist, and founder of the UnCeiling Zone. And around here, we talk about visibility, leadership, and the kind of networking that doesn't feel forced or fake, because real influence starts when your presence aligns with your purpose. This season, we're exploring how networking from authenticity to build meaningful relationships that grow your impact without losing your integrity or energy. In last week's episode, we spoke with Kira Curitin about negotiating and networking from alignment, how to stay rooted in self-worth even in high-stake conversations. And today we're going even deeper with someone who knows exactly what it takes to build success without losing herself in the process. My guest is Betsy Pepine, author, philanthropist, and serial entrepreneur in real estate. Betsy's book, Breaking Boxes, Dismantling Metaphorical Boxes That Bind Us, is a bestseller that's received numerous awards for its honesty and depth. And you'll hear her honesty in this episode. Her brokerage, Pepine Realty, has been recognized multiple times over by Inc. 500 as one of the fastest growing private companies in the U.S. and has earned spots in Florida's Trend's Best Companies to Work For. Listed in the Wall Street Journal's top producing real estate teams, she's also a mentor, educator, and founder of Pepine Gives, a nonprofit helping families facing housing insecurity. And yes, in case you're wondering, she's been endorsed by Shark Tank's Barbara Corrigan, as well as Dave Ramsey and Glenn Beck. But what I love most about Betsy is her candor, her willingness to talk about the moments when success on the outside didn't feel aligned on the inside, and how that realization led her to rebuild not just her business, but her entire life around authenticity and impact. In this conversation, Betsy shares how to recognize when your outer success is misaligned with your inner truth, why defining success around impact creates stronger networks and teams, and how to lead and connect from the quiet confidence of your core values. This episode is for anyone who's ever felt the tension between doing what's expected and doing what's right. So take a deep breath and let's dive in. Betsy, I really appreciate you being here and sharing your wisdom and also your book with us. You were outwardly thriving, successful in your business, but from the inside, something fell off. It was like misaligned. And it wasn't until you admitted that dissonance, that disconnect, that real transformation began. What gave you permission to say, I'm unhappy, even when your life looked picture perfect?
Yeah. Well, it did take me a while. It took me a good year of being aware of the feeling of being discontent and accepting that because for a long time I didn't feel like I had the right to. But I got to a point, and I don't know if it was my life in general or just the age. I was in my late 40s at the time. I'm now 56. And I had just gotten to a point where you're seeing premature deaths, you're seeing people getting diagnosed with, serious things. And I thought, my goodness, we've got one life to live. And if this is mine, I've got to take advantage of every day I have here. And so I think it was just the realization that time is short and we aren't guaranteed any day. And I don't want to continue living like this, being acutely aware of that.
So one of the things that you said was interesting. You said that you didn't feel like deserved it? Can you tell me more about that?
Well, I just, when we look around, we like, these are first world problems, and so I just didn't feel like I had the right to be unhappy because I had a lot of blessings in my life, and so it was almost like I was feeling that I would be ungrateful for what I had. And it wasn't that I wasn't appreciative for what I had. I was just not happy. And I felt like there was something more or something missing that I needed to explore. But I wrestled with that for quite some time.
So when you made that decision to say, okay, yeah, this is it. I have one life to live. And so I'm going to fill that thing that is asking to be filled. How
Mhm.
did that moment reshape your relationship with yourself?
Well, it was a process and it still is. I mean, it's a journey that I think I will always be on. But I think before that, I had a tendency not to prioritize my own needs. And so I think through a lot of different modalities, meditation, yoga, therapy, EMDR, bioenergetic work, breath work. Just feel like I gave myself the permission to take up space and that my needs, because I grew up in a great household, but one of the things that was missing in my household was that the messaging was that your needs were not important. And so I had carried that through my adult life. And so I think the biggest thing my relationship has changed with myself is that no, my needs do matter. And I am the one totally responsible for having those being met. And so that was a big shift for me to acknowledge that, to be okay with that, and to be okay with other people not being okay with that. Because when you shift the dynamics, when you step into your own space, you've changed now the energy and dynamics of your relationships. And so some people don't like that, are threatened by that, choose not to be around that. And that's okay. But to be okay with that being okay.
Yeah, I really love the fact that you described that process and described how that energy changes. And you describe in your book yourself as compressed, a mattress packed in a tight box built by others. And that image isn't just about confinement, it's about also potential, like when it gets uncoiled.
Hmm. Hmm.
That is a beautiful image. What were some of the invisible boxes you discovered, especially the ones that were created by well-meaning people or systems?
Oh my gosh, there's so many. The biggest one, the one that impacted, I think, my life the most, well, there's a couple, but one is just from a very early age. Everybody, when you're born into a family system, there are expectations to be a part of that family system. And one of the expectations in my family system was to be a physician. It was just expected. My father was one. My sisters are physicians. Their husbands are physicians. We were teed up very nicely to be one, and financially, the educational background, the volunteer opportunities I had were all leading to this path that I would be a physician. And I didn't want to be a physician. And that was very, very difficult for me to accept because there was also some kind of belief that if you weren't one, you were less than. And so, and it was done and great for, it was done in love. My parents thought that was what the best thing, that's what you strive to be. We came in through Ellis Island, we worked hard. This was supposed to be the dream. And so that's what they wanted for their children and provided everything to make that happen. It's not, it wasn't, they weren't looking at it as a negative thing. They wanted the best. But it was just really hard for me to say, well, no, thank you. It's not my dream. And so even after graduate school, I went into the pharmaceutical industry to really kind of placate that expectation to be in the healthcare field. So that was a big one. It wasn't only because of an unexpected and rather quick sudden events of a divorce at a young age with two young kids and being laid off in my job in a very short period of time. Those two events caused me to reflect on, okay, what am I doing? Maybe this is not the right path. Maybe the universe, God, source, whatever we choose to call it, maybe it's guiding me in a different way. And maybe it's time that I choose a path that I want. And that was kind of the first startings of me choosing my own way. And that was by the time I got into real estate, which was my passion, was my late 30s. Yeah. So that was a big box for me. But everybody has, I was talking to, I was on a podcast and I was asking the host once, what boxes did he feel he had been put in? And he said in his family, the firstborn son is named, I think it was John. And he was like the fourth generation and he had just had a son and he had to tell his family it wasn't going to be a John. And that caused apparently an incredible rift. And it was so funny because it's like, I can't even imagine that because that wasn't an expectation in my family. So I think we all have these kind of expectations that we're born into, and have to negotiate. And those are probably the hardest ones because they're imprinted on us at such a young age. So it's hard. I think those are the hardest ones to overcome.
Right. And I could see how that would impact his family. How was your family impacted when you went into real estate?
Well, when I didn't go to medical school, they were very disappointed. They said I was lazy, that I was not going to go and my goal was to go into graduate school in business. And at the time, the school that I wanted to get into required 2 years of work experience. And that's not the model in medicine. And that's all my folks knew was medicine. And in medicine, you go from college to medical school. And they felt that if you took a break, you might not go back. And so they didn't understand this model. So it did, it, I mean, it was hard for them. I mean, their dream their dream didn't come to fruition. And it did create some tension in the relationship. And I definitely felt like I had been knocked down a couple levels in terms of status in the family. I definitely felt like I was I was the black sheep in the family. And I think I still have that role now. I think they see me in that role now because I'm the only one in business and it's a world they don't understand.
Wow. And the thing about black sheep is they're really white sheep with black paint thrown on them.
Oh, yeah, it's nice.
Get out of the environment, and your fur grows and you cut off some of that black and now well, and it could be what it could be any color. It doesn't have to be black, but it's now glistening and then you go back and a little bit more paint gets thrown.
Yeah.
Sometimes we think authenticity is soft or passive, but what you discovered was really fierce clarity for
Mhm.
yourself. I mean,
Mhm.
kudos to you for following that still soft voice that said, no, you're meant to do this. And it reorders how we show up everywhere. Once you started going into real estate and living more authentically, how did that change who you attracted and who you let go?
Yeah, it definitely changed who I attracted and who I sought out because I no longer wanted and this took time, but I no longer wanted to be inauthentic and be around people who I felt weren't being true to themselves. And so that was a process and still is. And I think because my personality type is very I think I swung from being fairly passive in terms of having my needs met and my beliefs and expressing them, going the other direction to being very direct, very succinct, and very, very okay if somebody doesn't want to be in my boat.
Uh-huh.
And so I think just that attracts very different energies from people. I mean, it was just very different. And so I feel now the relationships that I have never been more um, felt more real and I feel more seen. And I feel that they're just so much richer than the relationships that I've had in the past. There's fewer. I mean, I have a handful, probably five, just really quality friends that know me inside and out. And, and I can truly be at ease around them. It's no longer stressful and have to go retreat to kind of breathe. So that's changed. It's just changed. It's dramatically changed my sphere group in terms of my close friends. It's also changed my colleagues and who I seek out for professional relationships.
And what have you learned about creating the kind of relationships that support the real you?
Well, I think it's me, it was me. I was showing up inauthentically. And so then I was attracting people who were attracted to this person that I didn't feel I really was.
Mhm.
So for me, I have to make a very conscious effort to show up at the onset authentically and being okay with not all relationships are meant to last. There's a great book. I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Henry McLeod, but great book, Necessary Endings. And it's before this, I used to think all relationships should last forever. And if they didn't, that was failure. Something happened and it was, I would label that in my mind and that's a box failure,
Yeah.
right? But now it's in that book really opened my eyes. It's no, there's necessary endings. People come into your life or, you always heard like a season could become for a season, could be life, but could be for a season, could be for a week, could be for a day, maybe not at all. And you learn your lessons and what you're meant to learn through that dynamic. And then you move on. And I think he referred to it as like pruning a bush and you prune back every season so that you get the opportunity to grow even more. And I love that and to flourish.
Yeah.
So So I think that's really changed how I enter relationships, but also view relationships. And I'm not afraid to have relationships end or end them professionally or personally when they no longer serve us.
I love that you shared that. And after rediscovering yourself, you just didn't stop there. You built a nonprofit business, a best-selling book, multiple companies, and you didn't just expand, you invited others to expand. What inspired you to turn your personal freedom into a community of impact?
I think I've always, even prior to this, I've always had one of my personal core values is impact. My goal in life, I mean, every night I ask myself, did my presence improve somebody's life today?
Mm, that's
Because
beautiful.
yeah, if it didn't, why am I here? So that's always been a driver in me. And so those initiatives came out of I think I was just born that way. Yeah.
What Betsy's saying here really resonates with me. That alignment isn't just an internal experience. When you stay aligned, people feel it. It builds real trust, and that's the foundation of every strong network. It's not only trust in others, but trust in yourself. It actually reminded me of a moment in my own leadership journey when pressure pushed me to move faster, to skip steps. I had to decide whether to choose the approval of others or alignment within myself. Have you ever felt that rush? The one that says, move faster. You need to prove yourself to others and say yes, even when something inside you whispers, wait, this isn't right. There's this time when a senior leader told me to move faster with a project, to skip steps and just get it done. And every part of me wanted to please him and to cross the finish line. Boy, do I love crossing finish lines and to cross them quickly, to prove that I can deliver. But deep down, I knew if I gave in, I'd be trading integrity for approval. And we might have to do the whole project all over again, which would make the project take twice as long as it really needed to. And that's not who I am. At that time, I was also exhausted, running on adrenaline, barely sleeping. And when he dismissed my reasoning, I could feel myself shrinking. So I had to stop. I stopped and took a breath and listened inward to that calm, quiet truth that said, stay steady. You know what's right. So I explained the plan clearly, calmly, step by step. He didn't like it, but I held my ground. And here's what happened. The project finished on time with zero rework, and the quality, it had what it deserved. The data spoke for itself. Integrity didn't slow us down. It actually protected us and protected our timelines. That moment changed how I defined leadership. It wasn't about saying yes to pressure. It was about trusting that inner compass, because the people worth connecting with will meet you in your integrity. So next time pressure pushes you, pause, listen, and hold your alignment. What are some of the ways that you see, or when you're tracking yourself, you say, yes, I did improve someone's life? How do you know that you've done that?
Usually it's through work where I've said something like I'll say yes today because of your reaction to that quote. Like I
Okay.
feel like, I do feel like I, I mean, I know it's very small, but I feel like I impacted your life today by saying that and you resonated with that.
Uh-huh.
So it's like getting reactions like that, and it's helping somebody have a view or an insight, a revelation, a mind shift that they didn't have before. And so it could be, with my real estate agents, I love showing them how to live a financially peaceful life. Has nothing to do with real estate, but I've seen my agents' lives changed through what I've shown them, both in terms of education, like we teach classes on it, but also through the way I run our companies and the way I show them how to invest their money in property. So it could be that. It could be something that an agent tells me that reverberates what I had taught them. So I see that the lesson is there. Or one of my children, at the end of the day, I want them to be confident and independent. And so I would always say to them, I don't know, but I know you'll figure it out. And the other day, my older daughter, I said, oh my goodness, what are you going to do? And she said, I don't know, but I know I'll figure it out. And it's like,
So,
it just, it just brings, she doesn't know how much joy that brings me, but it's like, that was my goal when she was 2, and to see that come to fruition, it's like, oh my gosh, I had an impact, so those are the kinds of things that cause me to check that little box that I check off every night.
nice. Well, you're proof that connection to self. And I want to add to that small, still voice that whispers the wisdom that is telling you what you're here for is the foundation of bold action. But bold doesn't always mean big. Sometimes
Mhm.
it starts with one honest decision, like the decision to track whether or not you made an impact that day. What's one small decisive move that set a whole new chapter in motion for you?
Oh, when I signed up for the real estate class,
Mm.
just signing up. I didn't tell anybody. I hadn't been to a school I was 37 and I hadn't been to a school since my graduate school. I think I graduated in like I was 24. And I was incredibly nervous just to even be in a classroom setting. But then also, real estate you don't even need a high school diploma, so I didn't want to, coming from the family that I came from, I didn't want to say anything to anybody, but just myself signing up for that class set in motion a whole new life for me, which I didn't know at the time was going to do that.
Wow. So when at this point in time with your book, with your companies and everything, and your family looks back at the vision come to life,
Mhm.
how do they react to it at this point? And do they understand it better?
They do understand it better, but where I am sad is that it was only after I was successful
Mm,
did I feel like I got their acceptance, and earned my status back in the family.
right.
And that's something that I've accepted, but yes, they understand now.
Well, you're an incredibly strong, courageous person. And I commend you for modeling that courage to do that, to follow that path.
I would just encourage everyone to, like you had mentioned, like follow that whisper in your head, acknowledge it, and don't wait as long as I did.
Where can folks find out more about you and grab your book?
I'm all over the social channels at my name, Betsy Pepine. I have a website, betsypepine.com. On that site, there's a free toolkit that you can get. And you can also order the book on that site as well as on Amazon. I also have a course that's related to the book that's there. So yeah, if you just Google Betsy Pepine, you'll find me everywhere.
So now we move to the insider circle questions. What's one thing that you used to seek from others, like approval, validation, admiration, that you now source from within?
All of those things, but more broadly, just my worth. I used to look outside for that. And I think that's why I was unhappy. We started the conversation at the very beginning, but me feeling unhappy yet on paper looked very successful. And I was seeking my self-worth from external validation. And it was only going within did I realize it was always there. And so yeah, so that's definitely something that I used to seek externally.
Wow. I think that's a powerful statement right there. Was there a moment when you had to walk away from a relationship or a system? And I think you mentioned a few that no longer fit the
Mhm.
expanded version of you. Maybe
Yeah.
go a little deeper on that one.
The good mom one, I was tested a lot
Mm,
because I didn't understand it until I had children, but we throw that term around. I think we throw that term around a lot. And what does that mean? And I have gotten judged a lot on my parenting decisions because I wasn't the typical, like I said, the helicopter parent, like I
mm,
was hands off. And I think people were surprised by that. And the turning point on that one was when I was walking my daughter into her grade school with a project that was due as her first big project that I had essentially done for her. It was a
mm,
poster. It looked beautiful, clearly not something that a grade school child could do. And I remember judging the other children's posters and thinking, gosh, what mom would send their posters in ripped and torn and handwriting lettering going, sloped, and it looked messy and the pictures aren't pasted on squarely. But then watching those children in line waiting to show their teacher their first project and their smiles just beaming because this is something they had done themselves. And then I
Yeah.
looked at my child who did not have that same expression on her face. And I thought, what am I doing? What do I want at the end of the day? And so went really kind of in a different direction and just looked long term. What do I want long term for my children? And tried to impose natural consequences. Like if my child left her lunch on the counter, I didn't run it to school. I lived a mile from school. It would have been very easy for me to do that. But I thought, what message does that send my child? If she doesn't have lunch for a day, she'll remember to bring it the next day. And she
Right.
did. But I got a call from school saying, your daughter said she forgot her lunch at home. And I responded, yes, she did. You know? And so things like that, I kind of felt like I was being judged a little bit by some of the decisions I made, but that was okay because my just fixated on, in 20 years, what do I want this to look like?
Yeah, I like that. Now that you lead from a place of wholeness, what would you look for when building your inner circle, team, friends, or collaborators?
I just look for depth. I look for people who are authentic, open-minded, clarity of vision, or openness to that, because I recognize I do have folks in my circle that are where I used to be, and I
Right.
want to help them. And again, I haven't arrived. It's still a journey. I've got a ways to go, but I'm not looking for someone who's always where I am or ahead of me. If I recognize the potential and the desire for growth, I absolutely am attracted to those folks.
Yeah, I can see that. I could see that happening because for me, in playing tennis, right now, I have a group of friends that are focused on what's going on in our head as we play the game. What are we saying to ourselves? What's serving us as we're talking to ourselves versus what's not? But then there's another group of friends that will have nothing to do with that discussion. And yet at the same time, whenever the match isn't going well, will really trash themselves or even trash their partner in that moment. And if at this point in time, if I'm playing with someone and they're not open to having the conversation of questioning what they're saying to themselves or even saying to me, okay, it's time for me to find a new partner.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I
Yeah.
play pickleball and I know those people.
And it's so hard to say, look, I even bring note cards and put it on the bench that have positive statements so that I can remember. And
Mhm.
they're at first they'll look at the note cards and then after that they're like, this is a waste of time. I'm not doing it. Okay. Note to self. Got
Right,
it.
I was gonna say note to self. It's great because then there's no ambiguity.
Yeah. Yeah. We're moving on.
Yeah. Next is my favorite. We've got quotes on our wall at my office and everyone could submit one. And my word was next. I mean, I just love that because it's like,
Yeah. Next.
yeah.
So, with that, what's one question you regularly ask yourself now to stay connected with your truth, that small, still voice before making a bold move?
I absolutely screen everything through. Is this consistent with my values? And is this aligned with my future self? Those two things will usually keep me on the path that I would like to be on.
I love that. I love that conscious focus. Thank you so much for being on the UnCeiling You. I really appreciate this conversation. I know that it's going to help so many people. And I thank you for your time, your energy, your focus, and for really dissecting your method so that we can all learn from it.
Thank you for having me.
Today, Betsy reminded us that success without alignment eventually collapses under its own weight. That's true connection. In life and in leadership, it begins the moment we stop performing for approval and start leading from our core values. We talked about listening to that small, still voice that knows when someone's off, about pausing before we rush, and about how integrity, not intensity, builds the kind of trust that lasts. So here's your reflection for today. Before you close your laptop, ask yourself, did I have impact today? Not just in what you produced, but how you showed up for yourself and for others. If you're ready to go deeper and learn how to reconnect with your purpose, reset your leadership energy, and build networks that align with your values, join the Leadership Reset waiting list. The link is in the show notes. And coming up in a week or so, we are hosting a free 5-day reset challenge for people that are under pressure. This is 5 days with short 3-minute actionable tasks you can do to stay calm under pressure and make clear, values-driven decisions, even when things seem chaotic. You'll automatically be enrolled when you sign up for the Leadership Reset program in the show notes. At UnCeiling You, we help ambitious professionals break through inner and outer ceilings to grow your impact, your influence, and your peace all at the same time. I'm Dr. Natalie Luke. Thanks for listening, for reflecting, and for doing the work of staying aligned in a world that moves fast. Until next time, stay clear, stay kind, and keep unsealing what's possible.